Hello, folks. I'm a paraplegic, meaning I have a spinal cord injury and paralyzed from the chest down. So periodically, I may be doing weight shifts like this to relieve pressure to avoid pressure sores. Now, you all do this in your own chairs, but do it subconsciously. Your body just tells you, I got to move here, and it's the same principle, but I have to do it on purpose, this weight shift. It reminds me of a time after I was injured, which is January 1st, 1979, 37 years ago, and through an automobile accident that I'll talk about a little bit later. I'm Catholic, and so I was a lector at our church, and my friend Bill was the choir director and was near me, and of course doing the choir directing by the microphone, and the priest. And many of you Catholics will know that during the Mass, after the reading and the singing, there comes a time for the gospel. And when the gospel happens, everybody stands up. And I figured that'd be a good time to do a weight shift. So I did, and I started to lift up. And as I was lifting up, Bill, by the microphone, looked and said, "Holy Jesus, he's going to walk." And Bill gasped, and the congregation gasped, and the priest gasped, and I sighed because I sat back down. I was so hoping God would let me stand at that particular time. That wasn't to be. God had other plans, and maybe it was being with you here today. I'm going to periodically take a drink of water because I have a medication I take that gives me kind of a dry mouth, but it's a good thing to be hydrated. I also, you can see I didn't come up the steps. I require some accommodation with the wheelchair. I want to make a point about that word, accommodation, because we think we tie it to disability typically. I know this is going to sound odd, but please humor me. Please stand. Would everybody please just stand if you are able to? If you're not, that's okay. Just trying to make a point. If you're able to stand, and while you're standing, I'd like you to think and be thankful about our host, who has provided chairs for all of you to sit in as an accommodation, right? It's accommodation for you. I brought my own chair. I didn't need that chair. And we have lights. We have lights so that we can see each other and communicate with each other. Well, people who are blind don't need lights. That's an accommodation for us. And we have a microphone so that you can hear me speak. But people who are deaf or hard of hearing have other kinds of accommodations, like our interpreter here. So here's the point, and especially in the workplace, that an accommodation is something that we all need. And by the way, it's really good business. It's good that we accommodate workers so that they are what? More efficient, more effective, more productive. Accommodation is something we all need. We are all different. So I could leave you standing to make the point through the whole thing, but please sit down as I tell you my story. January 18th, 1979. Important date for a couple of reasons. I'm in Detroit. I'm leaving a meeting and going back to my office, which is in north of Detroit, and I'm entering onto an expressway. This is the dead of winter in Michigan. And so as I'm going, not very fast, 25, 30 miles an hour in my big black electric 225, and I start sliding. I hit black ice and sliding towards the guardrail. Well, that's what guardrails are for. But unfortunately, Michigan, January, the snowplows had put snow up on the guardrail and ice, and it looked like a ski ramp. And sure enough, when that car hit that guardrail, it went up and over it, and 40 feet down below, landed on its top and broke my neck. I will be forever grateful to the medical people who saved my life that day, that got me out of that automobile that was crashed and used the jaws of life, that got me into the emergency room, into the hospital where they did spinal fusion, laminectomy, did emergency surgery and put a brace on my head. And so here I am in intensive care, laying on what's just called a striker frame. It's like a rotisserie where they turn you every 4 hours to do what? To avoid these pressure sores. And so I'm thinking, what's going to happen now? I have a great job. I look odd. I have bolts in my head. I look like Frankenstein. I'm paralyzed. I'm going to be using a wheelchair. I know they were honest with me. This is over. You are paralyzed. This is not going to be healed. What am I going to do? And I have a great job. I was time vice president of marketing at a company, making more money than I was worth. I had a beautiful family, 6 children, 1 more on the way. And of course, wouldn't you know, January 18th was the anniversary of our wedding to my lovely bride, Lana. So it was terrible, and it was despondent because I couldn't figure out, I couldn't see it. I couldn't see around the corner what that future would look like other than my life is over as I know it. And then something miraculous happened, something that changed my life. My brother-in-law, Gene Hamilton, brought in a friend of his, Bob, who happened to use a wheelchair at the same level of disability I did. And Bob started talking about life in a wheelchair. And of course, it didn't sound very fun, but it sounded doable, and I'm understanding this as he's explaining it. And then the bombshell. What the big change was that he said, and by the way, I'm a stockbroker, and come to find out he was making a lot of money. And so it was like an epiphany for me. I can remember the emotion of it right then that said, wait a minute. If he can do this, if he can have a job, if he can raise a family, if he can have a career, if he can make money, if he can live independently, if he can do all that, I can do that. So that peer support was a direct change in my life right then. Yes, you can. So off to Craig Hospital I go, world-renowned for rehabilitation. And when I get to Craig, boy, they worked me 5 in the morning till 6 at night learning wheelchair skills and what life in a wheelchair was like. And they taught me things like, you know, how to do a wheelie, right? And we think this is, but the reason for the wheelie is so that I can get up over curbs, right? It's kind of cool, looks cool, but there's a functionality to it. It reminds me, being paralyzed at the chest level, there are still things happening underneath. And my brain just doesn't know it, but muscles are feeling and nerves are firing and muscles are spasming. That stuff happens. You may see that. And so I was giving remarks to my daughter as a teacher, her 7th and 8th grade classes. And after about 30 minutes, and the beautiful thing was when I was done, they all wrote me letters saying thank you, and it was wonderful. And this one letter from Molly. And Molly said, Mr. Zelley, thank you for coming and talking to us about life in a wheelchair and showing us wheelies. Those are kind of cool. But I noticed something, that your foot moved. And so maybe you're not as paralyzed as you think you are. Don't you just love that honesty with children? And we don't know, do we? We don't know what life is like in a wheelchair. We don't know what other people go through. We don't know their lives. But if we get in the acceptance mode, and that's what I'm asking you to think about today, because what happened to Craig was they said, Mike, are you on Social Security disability insurance? And I said, well, what is that? They said, well, look, you paid for this. This is disability insurance you paid for, as all of you have and are paying for out of your check. We think it's Social Security, that FICA. What does that ever go to? Well, we'll hopefully get it someday when we retire. But also in there is an amount of money that you're paying for disability insurance in the awful event that something tragic happens to you. And so I said, well, what does it require? It requires that you have a permanent disabling condition that will prevent you from working for at least a year. I certainly had a permanent disability. There was no assurance I could work, even though I was so fortunate that I had a company. I wasn't a plumber, electrician, or a roofer. I didn't have to learn new skills. I could go back to my job because I still had my education, my brain still worked, I still had relationships, I still had the work performance. My company wanted me back. I was so fortunate to have that, but not all are. So, but there was no assurance I could until finished rehab, and sure enough I did. I went back part-time, then full-time, and part of SSDI is that you receive Medicare, which is so important to people with significant disabilities, and a cash benefit. For me, it was about $600 a month, which was nice. I was probably making 10 times that amount at work, but it's nice for what? To cover the cost associated with a disability, to cover the cost of a wheelchair, aids of daily living, or hand controls for a van, or those kinds of things that are associated with our disabilities. So it was nice. And so I'm back in the saddle and back to work, and career is expanding, and in a year, the check stopped. So I talked to Social Security, and I said, what's going on? They said, well, you're making more than substantial gainful activity, SGA. I said, what is that? And they said, well, look, this is wage replacement, the $600, and we have a substantial gainful activity, which was about $600 at the time, and you're making more than that. And once you make one more dollar than that, then this all goes away. The cash benefit goes away, the health care goes away, and it didn't make much sense to me because I thought this was disability insurance, and I have a disability, like life insurance or health insurance or car insurance or fire insurance. It's insurance, and I paid for it. This isn't welfare. Why would that stop? That's the rule. So, okay, I mean, I missed the $600 a month, but that's not changing my life. I'm back at it. But as I came to realize a couple of things when I started my company, that peer support was really important and that we have really bad public policy. The numbers are staggering on Social Security disability. We have 54 million Americans with a disability. We have in Michigan 500,000 working age people, 500,000 working age people with disabilities, not working, and 43% of them have a college education or a degree. What is wrong with this picture? Why are we keeping people, why are we trapping them? I mean, my hope today is that you will see the importance of using all the talent that we have that's sitting on the sidelines. I am not my disability. That's not who I am. I happen to have a disability. People who wear eyeglasses, people are tall, short, people are... I'm not that, and people are not their disability. Do you know that only 0.5% of the millions of people who are on disability, 0.5% go back to work? I'm one of them. What a tragic waste of talent and skills. Only 15% of people are born with a disability, and God bless them that they do well and recover from that. 85% are like me, we acquired in our lifetime. So what does that mean? That means we have work experience and education and skills that need to be in play. So we need people out of the spectator stands. We need people off the bleachers, onto the bench, getting training, into the game. And right now, they're not, because it's a spider web, it's a spider trap. What would you do? What would you do if you had this disability occur in your life, and you're on Medicare, and you're making $1,000 in cash benefit, and you can make $1,000, and you make one more dollar, and all of that goes away? That $1,000 cash benefit goes away, that Medicare goes away. I mean, you're living in poverty anyway. What would you do? We should change that. We should let people ramp off. Go to work. We want you in the workplace. We want you paying taxes. We want to make you taxpayers, not tax users. And so we can do that. We're better than that. We can change that. We just have to figure out how to do it. And Congress knows how to do this. But there has to be a need to do it. Let's get everybody in the game. So with that, I thank you very much for your time in hearing my story. And now I think we'll do a count. Thank you.